Welcome back to your weekly dose of motivation, brought to you by the Motivating Force Podcast. You're listening to Josue, an aspiring Marine Corps officer who is finishing up ROTC and working towards his bachelor's in criminal justice. And myself, Justin, a motivational speaker who's always excited to share our new ideas and topics with you. We are both highly motivated individuals who love to question everything and share some rather unique viewpoints with all of our listeners.
This week, we're going to be putting a little bit of a holiday twist. When we think of Halloween, we think of candy corn, pumpkins, and dressing up in different costumes. But as adults, we will be diving into some principles that apply to our day-to-day lives. So let's get this fire lit
and get motivated. So this week, we're going to be taking a slightly different approach to our standard Monday episode. With this being our Halloween special, we're going to share what our perspectives are on Halloween and in the perspective of us being the motivational leaders that we are, seeing what we can extract from Halloween and bring you guys some lessons here. We have two different viewpoints on this, so this is where it's going to differ. I'm going to kind of cover one topic and Josue is going to come in with another topic.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to have a really great conversation today about it. Our topics do have quite a few things in common. I'm going to be coming to the table talking about being fake and what it means to fake it till you make it. We're going to have a great discussion with that. And Josue's coming on with, what do you got for us, Josue?
I'm going to be going over how sometimes you need to put on somebody else's shoes so you can have a different perspective of how to view the world, whether that be to appreciate the little things in life or to have the empathy of what other people are going through.
Yeah, it's going to be some great points. As you can see the similarities there, because I'm taking kind of that similar idea where you're going to be wearing somebody else's shoes, but it's in the sense of adoration, right?
Yeah.
Imitation is the best form of flattery. So it's to really create that mind space for you to help yourself improve in life and become that successful individual. So to start here, I'm going to bring you a little bit of a lightly paraphrased article that I found written by Amy Morin over at Psychology Today. The link to that article will be in the description. So Amy Morin goes on to explain that acting, quote unquote, as if is a common prescription in psychotherapy. And what that means is it's based on an idea that if you behave like the person you want to become, you'll become like this in reality. This is the whole concept of faking it until you make it. And it only works when you correctly identify something within yourself that's holding you back. Behaving like the person you want to become is about changing the way you feel and the way you think. If your motives are to prove your worth to other people, however, your efforts won't be successful. And research actually shows that the fake it till you make it idea can backfire. So it was great to see that this generic term, or what, as common people we think of as a generic term, is actually something used in psychotherapy, which is great news for us because that means there's actual research done on this. This is used to really help people, which that in itself was mind-blowing to me. It was great to see that.
Yeah, when you first brought up the whole idea of the faking it till you make it, I only relate that to that backfiring aspect that you just mentioned. But I'm interested to see what points you're going to make on how it does help you improve your life.
Yeah, we're definitely going to clear up some of those misconceptions here because that is the problem with it. There's only one clear way to fake it till you make it and have it work. And a lot of times people do it without realizing like that's what they're doing, right? They're not doing it for the growth. They're doing it for that immediate gratification of being fake. That's what we mostly see.
Trying to fit into certain groups and not showing your true self is the easiest way to do that. Getting that approval.
Yeah, then there's no long-term effect to it. So the first problem we see with faking it till you make it is that most of the time you half-ass being fake when the whole concept relies on you whole-assing it. It really is a deep introspective approach. When you believe what you're trying to put out into the world, you're more likely to achieve those things. So this being the problem, faking it till you make it is mostly a frowned upon act. Because they say, oh, you're not being yourself, you're not being genuine, And the true art of faking it is exactly the opposite of that. There is a lot of genuine characteristics to it. There is a lot of introspection to it because you are trying to identify parts of yourself that you don't like. And the best way to do that is to go out, see other people who are successful, because you have to remember when we talk about success, I'm not talking about money.
Yeah.
We're not trying to put you out here to be the next Elon Musk. I'm not saying fake it till you make it, so go pick a random billionaire and pretend to be them. You need to find somebody who you adore, right?
Yeah, admire, taking their qualities that you can implement in your own life to benefit from.
Yeah, and this goes great into mentorship. You know, people who have a mentor, generally those are very successful people in life in what success truly is.
Yeah.
You know, these are people who can find fulfillment, they can achieve great things. And it's interesting because a lot of the life coaches and some of the other more famous motivational speakers that I follow, even for how massive their following is and how far along they are, they still have mentors. They still have people that they look up to and people that even they still pay to be in communication with. And a lot of this, again, has to do with faking it till you make it, because even when you make it, how far are you really needing to go? So when you pick that person who has those qualities that you want in your life, it's easy to analyze that person and be able to make those corrections to yourself to fix that.
I like this point because now that I'm hearing what you're saying, I'm thinking about all these different comedians that would talk about these things on podcasts, how when they first started, they were basically copying older comedians that were big at the time, and how taking those styles over the years of like introspection and looking back at their own, their comedy specials or their acts, they were able to form themselves out of it with the grounds of who the, I guess, mentors you would call them that they had at the beginning. Like they were able to form themselves now. So being able to see that growth is beneficial when you're trying to fit somebody else's shoes at the beginning.
Yeah. And that's where we need to really come in and eliminate that stigma. The people who are half-assing it, they're going to fizzle out anyways. So don't even worry about the stigma of it. Give it an honest try. Because the people who honestly try it are the ones that you don't even realize are faking it. The ones that get caught all the time are the ones who aren't doing it for the right intentions, or they're just not trying the way that they need to be.
They're like, in that example that I was just bringing up about the comedians,
yeah,
they're like the hacky comics that you're just like, oh, that's somebody else's joke. But when you're taking the premise or just their outline of how they go about jokes and then you're putting your twist to it, it's that whole 100% faking it till you're making it. Because they've already made it, so now you're trying to follow their footsteps, but still with your twist.
So you pick up what I'm putting down so far on this?
Yes, sir. I don't see a problem with this.
Awesome. Cool. So getting into that second problem then, this is where we're going to talk a little bit deeper about why people don't give this an honest try and why the people that do it fail, typically. A lot of people fake it to kind of quote unquote prove your worth, right? So you don't think you have a lot of, and this is easier to use monetary examples because, you know, more of that tangible thing. It's really hard to grasp onto the concept of values.
Yeah.
And applying those to your life, which is great because other people can't grasp onto that either. So when you try to implement that in your life, it's a lot easier because you're not getting so criticized for it. But taking the monetary example, right? A lot of people will go and buy the fake jewelry, go and buy the fake shoes, the Walmart suits, and just to give off that appearance of wealth.
Yeah, like the fake Rolexes, the fake Kanye, the Yeezys.
Yeah, it was funny because I had somebody come in my shop one time who had this big-ass watch on. Like, the watch face was the size of his wrist. Like, it was like some fossil diesel, I think it was a diesel watch, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I was working on his car. He's talking to me, you know, we're just chit-chatting back and forth. And I was like, real quick, what's the time? Because I had to go do something, right? And he's like, and I pointed at the watch, and he was like, oh, no, bro, the watch doesn't work. And I was like, bro. And I get, you know, of course, having a little repertoire there was like, what are you talking about, man? You got this nice watch, and it don't work?
That's the whole point of the watch, dog.
Go put the battery in
doing?
it. Like, what? And he's like, oh, no, it's not the battery. He goes, no, I bought it broken, but I used to wear fake watches, but I used to get called out for it. So now I wear real watches
that don't work.
but they don't work. But it's all right because it's right twice a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, man, come on. So you can see the difference there, that the value of that's so misconstrued, where you have the people that will wear the fake stuff to try to pretend like they have money, and then that's a whole problem on its own. But now you have people who are going to go out and wear broken, real things that cost real money to impress people from a distance. Because as soon as you ask him about it, it's broken, right? But he was happier knowing that he had on
a real watch,
a $5,000 watch he paid $500 for that didn't work, compared to wearing a $50 watch that looked like the real thing and worked. It's just crazy seeing how far away people will go or get from just the authenticity that you should have in your life. But back to the main point here. When you're trying to do this to prove your worth, obviously you can see where that's going to fall short. Because as soon as anybody comes towards you and approaches you with it, and whether it's the fake stuff or it's the broken stuff, and apply this to those values, right? This is where we're getting at with it. You're applying broken values to yourself, or you're applying these worthless values to yourself, it's going to get found out.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because a lot of times people wait to be found out to realize that it's a problem. When you need to look at yourself, have that introspection, realize those broken values you have, or those fake values you have, understand that it's okay, right? We're all human. We have our flaws, but understand that you need to heal from that, or you need to fix that, and then go out there, get after it, find the people who have those fake values that you have, but are really doing it, and see how they do it. That's why there's no shame in faking it.
Yeah, I really like that approach that you took on this because, like I mentioned at the beginning, I only saw this as a negative viewpoint.
Bringing all positivity, boy.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how you're able to change that and now make it so then people can start saying faking it till you make it, but with the right attitude towards it instead of just calling people out with it.
Hi, I'm Juan.
And I'm Dorhan.
And this week's episode is brought to you by Fuego Pants. Not a real product.
It comes in gas or diesel
All octanes available.
and helps light the fire under your ass.
Shipping available to all states except Alaska, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii.
And now back to this week's episode.
Now, my approach was a little bit different, where when I think of the Halloween special and how we're going to tie this all in, I was like, okay, you think of like dressing up as somebody else, right? You have your ninja costumes, you have your vampires, and it made me really analyze how we're going to make this a serious topic. And the one thing that I noticed that's the problem is the whole concept that people just lack empathy, knowing what it's like to be somebody else, or like having certain struggles that you don't really relate with because you're not seeing from that perspective. So I could even relate this to that point on it, people being entitled from the last episode, because like an example that I can give is people that are just born rich, people that have a lot of money from the time they were born till they just grow up and they don't even have to struggle finding a job because they don't know what struggling to find money for a meal is, So when you are that rich person, just take a couple seconds out of your day to think of, I'm a lot better off where I am than the people that are on the street begging for money, right? So take the second to put on that Halloween costume, but year round, see what it's like to be the beggar, see what it's like to be a middle class person that's working 40 plus hours a week.
So I see where the empathy for the other person, but it's also on yourself about being grateful.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to bring in my second point. But right now, it's just the empathy of seeing what other people are going through. Like just overall, just changing the view you have. Because even people that are just born and raised in like these set up groups, let's say you're born and raised only in St. Cloud, Florida, where it's predominantly white. So you're going to be raised a certain way, and then you go to like New York or Pine Hills in Florida, where it's predominantly black. You're going to have a little bit of a rough going there because you're only used to being around whites, and then you're going to get introduced with blacks or Latinos. And this is a problem that I'm seeing now in the media, that they're polarizing everybody. And we talked about this last episode, but I feel like if those whites, I'm not trying to like call anybody out, but example.
Like you were saying, yeah. You get culture shock just going down the street.
Exactly. Like have a white guy just try to imagine what it's like to be black in today's society. the whole thing on the news is like police brutality. Yeah, you can imagine you being white, you don't get that much trouble from the police. But I'm Hispanic, I get pulled over, I'm already nervous. I didn't do anything wrong, probably speeding. Well, that could be counted as
That's
wrong.
why you got pulled
Yeah.
over, I'll tell you that.
But I have that fear in the back of my head of, this could go south very quickly just because of the color of my skin.
Right.
Right. But I can do the same thing. Maybe I can change my view on if I see things through your eyes of what it's like being white going into these other neighborhoods where you do get that culture shock, then I will change my perspective on how to approach you when I'm in those neighborhoods. Instead of coming off so defensive, I can just embrace it because I can see how you're a little nervous and you're going to act a little bit different.
So basically it's an understanding on both sides where this really seems to work out best when everybody's able to have that different perspective, be able to look through the eyes of somebody else.
Yeah. And that's why I'm trying to bring in financially, you can look through other people's eyes that are struggling or that are doing better off, or even race, the color of people's skin. You can change this drastically. Tying in this whole Halloween theme to what we're talking about today, I'm using Halloween as the premise of that you have to dress up as somebody else because you don't go to a Halloween party and dress up as yourself, correct?
No, right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're always dressing up as somebody else. So for that one night a year, you get to be Dracula, you get to be a mummy, you get to be a ninja, where the whole year you're just you.
Yeah.
Or at least, like you said, faking it till you make it.
Being the best version of yourself. That's who all of our listeners are.
Yeah, and just seeing the world through somebody else's eyes or perspective will just help you gain that empathy and also help you stay grounded or humble in certain cases, because then your ego won't get so inflated due to the realization that the world doesn't revolve around just you.
Yeah, so real quick, hit me up with, I know we all have, obviously, anybody can go to Google or dictionary and see, the definition of empathy, but I want to kind of see where your mindset is on this word, because you're laying in real heavy on empathy, so I want to see what your approach is on that.
So the way I relate to empathy is on an emotional level. We can come off as rude to certain people when we're thinking we're just being straightforward or just saying what people need to hear. Empathy is knowing that that person's understanding what we're trying to say as rude.
Right.
So if you lack the empathy, you're just going to think the person's understanding just like you think. If I'm going to say something that's kind of mean, but I'm thinking I'm right, the person that you're telling it to will think of it as mean and they're going to be offended by it. Lack of empathy, you think that they're just fine. They don't have that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're not going to have a negative response. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That clears it up for me.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, that works for me. I'm good.
And then the point that we mentioned before on appreciating that mundane, appreciating what you have, being grateful, like you mentioned. There's times where you're down in the slums, you're struggling and you think everything's out to get you, but there's always going to be that person that's doing worse. As bad as certain things could be for you, you can always take that step back and remember, hey, maybe there's somebody else that's struggling a little bit more. Or in this example where just last week, you go to the donut store and they don't have the donut you wanted, so then you're going to get all sad about it. Why are you going to let that ruin your day when there's somebody else that's just struggling to eat anything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, right? You sit there worrying about that, and you think about,
I didn't get my donut.
Yeah, then you realize how petty some of your issues really can be when you compare it to, and you don't even have to, I hate when people use the exaggeration of, the classic one, right? If you don't finish your dinner or whatever like that, and it's oh, there's starving kids in Africa. You don't relate to that. I hate to say it, but I kind of don't. You don't relate to that.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to understand that when you're being ungrateful for that, not having your donut or whatever, and you don't have to go that far. You don't have to go all the way to Africa. Hell, go down the street. Go to the food bank.
Yeah. That's why I mentioned, look at the people on the corner of the street begging for food, begging for money.
When you realize it's your neighbor, it's a lot easier to realize that it could be you.
Yeah.
Because if it's in Africa, there's no way in hell that's going to be you. When it's the guy next door, that sure, he has a roof over his head too, but he hasn't eaten in 2 days because he can barely afford his rent. It hits closer to home.
Yeah, then I also had a different point where to get it off a little bit personal, since that donut thing happened to me.
Yeah, if people didn't catch on to that sarcasm there.
Yeah, but this could go an even heavier route where, let's say you have some troubles in your relationship, right? Like your girlfriend or your wife in your case decides to leave you, right? There are people that they're getting so much hate and ridicule right now for just liking the same gender. But just liking the same gender, that's the point that I'm trying to make. They're not even in the relationship with a person, right? They're not even able to experience that love or that emotional connection with somebody like you and your girlfriend or you and your wife, husband, whatever. But knowing that there's people out there just getting hate for liking somebody of a certain gender.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's like, what is that? 70 Show plays a big premise on that where they talk about the neighbors who are just roommates.
Yeah.
But it's two dudes, you know, and they're together, they're in their 60s, and it's like, oh, no. Those guys aren't roommates.
They're bedmates.
Yeah. Those are definitely husbands right there.
But again, we're not hating on this. I'm using this as an example of, like, you don't have it as bad as you think you are.
Yeah. No, I say because even the value side of it and the monetary side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're covering both points here. It's awesome.
Yeah, you should be able to appreciate what you have in the moment. And that's why this Halloween special, I think, could hit home with a lot of people, because being able to put on that mask or walk in the shoes of somebody else, it'll help you, like I said earlier, get grounded, have that stability of knowing who you are and your values. So as Justin was saying earlier, he was coming at this with a more introspective approach to this topic, whereas I was coming with an outrospective approach to the topic. But when combined, we can really use these as tools to just help you become a better person, help you have a better outlook on life, and form better understandings of who you want to be and how to get there. So real quick, before we wrap everything up, I want to let you know we used Halloween as a metaphor for this episode, but our Wednesday episode is going to be covering Halloween in depth. It's going to be more of that origin of Halloween, as opposed to using Halloween as a metaphor like this one. So with that being said, thank you for listening. Remember to follow all of our social media, Facebook at The Motivating Force, Instagram at Podcast TMF. Remember to like and share this video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit that bell icon. Remember that all episodes drop Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. EST.
Now go get it.